Hello everyone. My name is Ravi Kochia. Welcome to today's session. I'm your host for today. I'll briefly introduce myself. Uh, by profession, I'm an IT engineer. I started my career at Accenture for about a year, and then I moved to Simpress. Currently, I'm working as a senior software engineer for Simpress for about past 2 years, and I am a core committee member of the Codec team. You might ask, what is Codec? Codec is nothing but a open developer community, just like Google developer group, but we are still in our initial stage, and we want to make our team bigger, and we want active collaborator. We have already an amazing lineup of the events coming up in the future. But if you're interested in the events which we organize, or you want to be a speaker, or you want to collaborate on any session, you can reach out to any of the team member, or you can keep looking out for the post or the notification we are going to post in the social media. Coming to the today's session, our today's speaker is Neeraj Verma. Little bit about him. He started his career at Drona HQ startup. He wore multiple hats over there. Then, after a brief stint at another startup, he joined Simpress. He's been with Simpress for past 2.5 years. He joined as a senior software engineer and then moved to DevOps. He led a team for 1.5 year, and he is currently working as a technology manager. When I asked Neeraj what his hobbies are, he mentioned that he likes to play PC games. But looking at this topic, you guys wanna guess what he might be doing if he's not playing PC games? Okay, so he likes to do work on a silly personal project. So without further ado, uh, let's hand it over to Neeraj.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for the brief intro. Let me start with sharing my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yes.
as Ravi mentioned, when I'm not gaming, in my free time, I'm usually working on one of the silly projects. As you can see in the background, I have three windows. One is another project that I was working on at that time, and then some music to keep me motivated. So, okay. So what exactly are personal projects? Now, in our work life, we keep on working on multiple projects. But when it comes to personal projects, these are something you do for your own. So the way I define my projects as personal, these are the projects that I am working on for myself on my terms. That means I decide when I want to work on, I decide what I want to prioritize, I decide what if I don't want to work on any of the projects. And most of the time these projects are either I'm working on to solve a problem that I have, it is a need that I want to fulfill, or I'm just curious about certain thing and I just want to work on it. There are no financial aspects involved with it, so it's not a freelancing project that I'm working on for someone else. uh, Only reason is because there are no financial aspect, there is no enforced timelines, there are no deliverables which I have to deliver on Monday before 9 a.m. So there is no commitment, and I have the freedom to work on how I want to work and when I want to work. So why I keep on working on these projects? So if I remember correctly, I mean, I don't exactly remember when I started working on these, but I do remember that it has been quite some time. I guess maybe somewhere in around 2014 or 2013, I started working on these projects. And so one of the biggest point that why I work on these is it's like an exercise for the brain. So while we go to gym to for our physical body exercise, working on these projects is an exercise for my brain. As a software developer, we are not paid to write code. The biggest time that we spend in our work is thinking about a problem, how we should solve it, what is the best way to solve that problem. There can be multiple solutions, which one works the best, what are the pros and cons of each approach. And that thinking we cannot, I mean, So working on these projects, again, because I'm solving some problem, it might be trying to figure out how do I do a batch processing. It might be how do I do a background processing. Whenever a notification comes, I want to do a background processing. How do I solve those problems? How do I tackle those challenges? That way it becomes an exercise for me. And another point is it's a learning playground. Now, many of us are curious about all the new technologies that keep on coming up. We might be following few blogs, we might be following few Twitter accounts where we get to know what all new tools and technologies are coming up. But I don't think we are getting time to, or we are getting a place where we can work on those technologies. At our work, we might be using some technology. Let's say if I am using Node.js, it's not like that tomorrow I can start, okay, I don't want to use Node.js, I want to use Golang, let's work with that. We can't do that at our work. There are a lot more things in place, and we have to consider a lot more things before we decide on working on any technology. But because these personal projects, I decide what I want to work on, I decide when I want to get these done, they can be my learning playground. I might decide, okay, I want to learn Rust language, let's start working with it. Maybe after spending 3 weeks, I will decide, okay, it's not working out for me, I don't want to use Rust, I will use Node.js. Because these are personal, there are no timelines. I can keep on experimenting. So it's a learning playground where I experiment. I can fail, I can break things a lot, again and again, and still there is no one complaining on my head. uh, Another reason is, many of these projects I have worked on because I had some problem which I wanted to solve, and these projects help me doing that. So one example is, I guess around 3 4 years back, I wanted to share links from my desktop to my phone because I wanted to read while I was traveling, and I had the link on my desktop. Maybe I'm leaving from the office, I want to continue reading that blog. Uh, I couldn't find an easy way to transfer that link. Yes, I can send it, I can send out an email. I can then click on that link in my email and get it done. But that didn't sound cool enough. So I thought of, okay, maybe I can convert that URL as a QR code, and then I have an app installed on my phone and I can scan that QR link. So so then again I created a browser extension which is called QR links. It the only thing it does is you click on it, you will get a QR code of the URL, and then you scan it, you have the URL on your phone, you can send it to WhatsApp, or you can share it with your friends on WhatsApp, or you can continue reading while you are traveling. And the last point is, to me it's interesting and fun. uh, so or I am, you can say, I'm kind of an introverted person, so I like spending time at home, and that is how I spend most of my weekends. And as Ravi said, if I'm not playing games on my PC, then I am working on either of these projects, and I find them interesting. It's fun for me when I get to solve a problem. I see all the outputs coming in the command prompt. I find it interesting, and that's why I keep on working on these. So when do I work on these? Simple answer is whenever I feel like it. Now I have a screenshot of different of my GitHub activity from different year. So you can notice in 2014 at the end, in December 2014, I was very active. In 2015, again I was active in Jan Feb, and then I started getting lazy, and then the activity dropped. In 2016, I the activity was again very less, but then again in 2019, 2020, I started working on more on these projects, and then the activity picked up. So the whole point is, I decide when I want to work on it, how I want to work on it. If I'm not feeling like it, I won't even touch any of the project for months. And if I'm really interested, I'll keep on working on them every day. So the reason why I had why I had almost daily activity between December to Feb was because during that time I read an article which said if you want to keep yourself motivated for your personal project, you should make at least one commit every day. So I started following that. I made sure, irrespective of where I am, I'm making at least one commit, and that has to be a fruitful commit. You cannot just edit a variable name and then say call it a commit. It has to add a value to the project. And I remember once after office, I went out for dinner, and while we were leaving from the restaurant, I remembered I had forgotten to make a commit. So I immediately opened GitHub on my phone, looked at the code. I remembered, okay, what I wanted to work on, made a very small change. It was a value addition, but still I made that commit. And now I don't want to do that. That was a phase where I wanted to do it. Now I don't want to do it. So nowadays I work on it. If I don't have a lot of meetings late in the evening, I might work after office hours, or I might continue working on it over the weekends. The whole idea is you decide whenever you want to work on it. So let's look at few examples of the projects that I've created. This is one of the earliest project that I could remember. This was a very simple app called Cab Rider. You select a source, you select a destination, and it will compare prices between Ola and Uber. So this I had created when Ola and Uber were new in the market. We were using that to travel almost every day. And during that time, they also used to show a surge pricing against each option. And it's possible that a mini with 2.0x surge might be expensive than let's say a prime with only 1.2x surge. So I created this app just to get a comparison. If I want to go from office to home, uh, I enter the source and destination. I click on calculate fare. It will the app will call the Google API, get the distance between these two destinations and how much time it will take, how many kilometers it will be, and based on that, it will do a static calculation of how much I will pay if I select Ola Mini, Ola Micro, or Uber Sedan, or Uber Go. And while this solved one of my problem, but I don't think I ever used this app because uh, by the time I was done with it, we had already moved on to just using Uber at that time. And but still, it was a learning for me. This was the first time I was using Google Maps API. So to auto populate your destination or to calculate how much time it will take to travel from destination A to B, for those I use Google Maps. And I even got to know that if you want, there are some APIs provided by Google which are not free. So when you use the distance calculation API, in the free version of the API, you will get the distance and the time that will not consider the real time traffic. If you want to get the information considering real time traffic, that is a paid API which Google provides, and you will have to subscribe for it, and then only you will get the real time estimation for your journey. And that was a learning. Okay, even Google has some paid APIs. This was another project that I worked on for quite some time. So in my previous company, we were using MySQL as our database backend. And at that time, there were few graphical user interface, database browser for working with the database. But what I realized that at that time, MySQL Workbench was very buggy. It used to hang a lot. And another tool that I was using at that time, by accident, I had deleted two tables, production data, just because I was trying to delete one row. And I thought, okay, I'm clicking on one row, I selected delete row, it should delete only that row. But because there was no primary key on that table, that tool ended up deleting everything. And that was a learning for me. Okay, I cannot trust any app which is not open source, because if I'm using it with my production database. So I started working on this tool. This was inspired by another tool called as PG Web, that is the web-based database browser for PostgreSQL database. I copied it, started converting it to make a MySQL version of it, and I did learn a lot while working on this project. So this was the project. So before I started working on this project, I had already started to learn Go language. I tried to follow a book, going through one by one chapter, but it was very boring. Yes, I can read all the concepts, but if I'm not doing hands-on, I won't be able to remember anything. So this PG Web project is already built on Golang. So and when I was converting it to MySQL, I started working on Golang as well. And because this was a database browser, I got to know, okay, how different objects in databases are stored. How does MySQL store information about a table? What is the table name? What all columns are there? What is the data type? How where does MySQL store a stored procedure? Where does a MySQL store a function? How to distinguish between a stored procedure and a function? So all those things I got to know, and I also got to know that executing a SQL statement is very different than executing a SQL stored procedure. Internally, these are two different commands, even though we can write call certain procedure or select star from a table. But internally, these are two completely different things. And at that time, Golang didn't have the support for calling C stored procedure. So that was a good learning for me. And while working on this, I was using few third-party libraries, and I got to add my contributions to one of the libraries where I found a bug. I fixed that bug, and I contributed my patch to that library. So this is another project. I think you can definitely call this one a very silly project. All it does is every day at 9 a.m. India time, it will find a random image from Wikimedia. It will call three AI services, and it will try to describe that picture. This was again inspired by another project, which is Pick Desk Bot. That bot only uses a Microsoft API to describe an image. I thought maybe I should use Microsoft, Google, AWS, all three of them, and that is how I ended up creating this project. Again, a lot of learnings from this as well. After a very long time, I was back working with C Sharp. I also realized that statically typed languages like C Sharp or Golang are not a very good option if you have dynamic objects, if you are working with JSON documents which are not defined. You can make it work, but it was very tricky for me to get it work for my use case. And on top of that, I also worked with different AI services of AWS, Microsoft, and Google. And if you notice, you will see that in all these tweets, I get information from AWS and Microsoft, but I don't get any information from Google. Now, it's not that the Google API is not able to describe it. The reason behind that is, so I am running this project on a Raspberry Pi. That is a different CPU architecture. It is a ARM32V7, and and the SDK which Google provides, unfortunately, it is not supported on ARM32V7 as of when I last published this project. So that again is a learning. Okay, not everything is supported on every platform, and I did find few workarounds, but I didn't want to spend any time on it, so I just left it. And this bot is still posting every day. If there is electricity or internet at my home, you will get a tweet from this bot. And if you find this interesting, maybe you can follow it. and and the list doesn't end. There are more projects. The latest one that I'm working on, I have named it Chitragupt. There is something called as quantified self. The whole idea is you try to quantify your life, what you are doing in your life. So as Ravi mentioned, I play a lot of game. I just wanted to see how much game do I really play. In an hour, in a day, am I playing 24 out of 24 hour? Am I playing 6 hours of the game, or am I just playing 3 hours and assuming that I'm playing 6 hours? So the idea is to quantify a lot of things in my life. It can be how much music I listen, how much game do I play, uh, how much reading I do, what all websites I visit. I mean, you can imagine what there are a lot of activities we do every day. I'm thinking maybe I can quantify all of those or as much as I can, and that is this project is about. I'll see how much do I achieve and where it goes. Another project that I was working on briefly is sync calendars. So at my work, I have two different email addresses, and when people want to send an invite to either of those email addresses, they can't see the invite. They can't see my calendar on. So let's say if someone is trying to reach me, send an invite on my Pen's National Pen email address, they can't see my calendar of Simpress email, which means they might book a time for let's say 4 p.m. tomorrow, but I might be already booked on my different calendar at 4 p.m. So I thought maybe I can write a service which will keep on syncing these two calendars. Again, lot of learning. How do I get information whenever a new event is created on either of my calendar? How do I get to know about it immediately? And how do I keep on updating it? And still trying to figure out few challenges there, and it is still a work in progress. Another project that I worked on was YouTube skips ads. uh, all of us listen to a lot of music on YouTube. Some of us might have paid for YouTube Premium. I haven't, so I keep on getting a lot of ads. Now I don't want to block any of these ads, because end of the day, whoever has created a content on the YouTube, if I am shown an ad when visiting their video, they will also end up making some money. So I didn't want to do run ad block on this, but YouTube does give us an option of skip ad. Earlier I used to earlier I used to manually click on that skip ad button. I thought of maybe I can figure out if that skip ad button appears and automatically click on it. That is how I ended up creating this browser extension. If you are watching YouTube and you want to help the content creators, you might want to take a look at this extension. Another project I was working on, Firefly Auditor. So there is a project called as Firefly, which is a self-hosted money management tool, you can say. Uh, it gives you option of adding all your expenses, and then you can you can see where you have spent your money. I wanted to add a feature where I can audit all the expenses that I'm actually making, if I have added to that service or not. So for that, I decided I will I will parse the statement, credit card statement, bank statement that we get from our banks, and map it with the Firefly service if I have added that transaction there or not. I decided to use Golang, but PDF parsing in Golang was very tricky. So I ended up creating the PDF parsing logic in Node.js, but still continue using the Golang. So it's very small interface to execute Node.js script from Golang, get the output, and then use it further. That was also an interesting learning for me. Another project, Instagram Archiver and QR links. So these are the few projects which I could remember looking at my GitHub repository. I am sure if you meet me 6 months down the line, I'll have more projects to add to this list. And so, how can you start working on these? Now, I know many people want to spend time working on these projects so that they can also keep them up to date on the new technologies that are coming up. Or they might want to learn a tool, they might want to learn a technology, or they might just want to solve a personal problem. So what I'll suggest, if you're starting up, always try to solve a personal problem. That way you can keep yourself motivated. If I tell you that you have to create a student management system using Golang, it might be a new tool, you might be interested on learning that tool, but I can tell you, from at least from my experience, it will be very difficult to keep yourself motivated, continue working on that project if you are not personally attached to that project. But if you are trying to solve a personal problem, you would definitely want to get it solved as soon as possible, and you will have a personal attachment as well. So you will end up solving that problem as well as learning a new tool. Second suggestion is, don't jump to new tools, don't jump to all the new tools. So let's say you want to start on a new project, and if you are planning to use five tools on that, make sure not all five of them are new, because you will end up learning about those tools and you won't be solving the actual problem. Now that is true even for your work projects, but in this case I would say it has to be a balance. You want to keep yourself motivated, you want to get some output after one weekend. So try to find a balance where you are using a new tool as well as you are getting some output out of it, and also know when to stop. uh, what I mean by that is, don't burn yourself working on the work projects as well as personal projects. As you might have seen, my GitHub history is a mix. Sometimes I'm working a lot, sometimes I'm not working. That just to keep myself in that you can say that just to keep myself at peace. I whenever I feel like I don't want to work on a project, I don't work on it. And good thing is, this is a personal project. No one is going to complain, why haven't I delivered an API? within 3 months. So know when to stop. If you feel it is too much, don't do it. Take a rest, go out, and maybe next month start again. And another thing, people might say that, okay, I want to learn new things, but I can't think of any ideas. Well, if you can't think of any ideas, maybe connect with me. You can send out an email to me. My email address is hello@smurfpandey.me. Or you can also check out my Trello board. There I have added a good amount of ideas which I had. You can check it out. Maybe you will able to relate to a problem, and you can start working on it. You can go to my blog. There is one of the posts there, open sourcing my ideas, and then you can check out those ideas. My blog is blog.smurfpandey.me. Uh, I think that's it. Any questions? Looks like not.
Guys, you can ask the question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself to ask the question. You can ask anything. If you have an idea, you're stuck on something, or you want to ask about any of the project in detail, you can ask it now.
So Neeraj, I had a question.
Yeah.
Mohit here. So I had a question. When do you stop working on a project? So I myself, when I'm working on a project, so you continuously add features, you keep adding on to it. So at what point do you think it is complete, or at what point do you believe you should stop development?
I would say you should stop development when you feel like that you are done with it. It's possible that you have a project, you keep on working on it for 6 years and it doesn't hurt. End of the day, you are solving some problem and you are learning new things. So whenever you feel like that, okay, I am done with the project, you should stop. Otherwise, there is no deadline that, okay, you should not work on a project for more than 6 months or for more than a year. I myself can find a project which I started 1 year ago. I stopped working on it, then I started again. So I guess that should answer your question.
Right. I guess that does.
We have a question in chat. It's from Reshu Chobe. How to differentiate between voice of a frog and a voice of a bird?
I hope that is a serious question. So if I have to answer it, that goes into pattern recognition, and you can definitely put some AI ML into it. Let's say if you have a good data set of all the voices that frog makes and all the voices that birds make. If you want to do everything from scratch, you can definitely learn data science. You can build a model to identify two voices. You can input the training data set to prepare your model. Then you can then start giving voices to that model to see if it can identify. If not, you can look at various AI ML services which many of the vendors are providing, like AWS, Microsoft, Google, and more. You can see if they have any voice recognition service where you can identify if a voice is, let's say, male or female, or is it an animal or a human. Maybe you can check out those services. But if you want to do everything from scratch, I would say that's a good AI ML project.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I think I don't know that. So I'm getting stuck. How can I differentiate between the voice of frog and voice of bird? But there is any. It is important to first we apply, as I think first we do a signal processing, then we first I do a signal processing, then I apply any model. I want to just clarify by the help of one video. I can do all kind of visualization by the help of Librosa. Now I can moving ahead. Then I want to I can just do signal processing by the help of PyAudio. So am I going a right way?
So frankly speaking, I am not an expert in this. I think you are thinking in the right direction that you will have to do some kind of signal processing to make a. So obviously these are two different animals. Most probably they'll have a different frequency and different wavelength of their sound. You can try to identify on that. And I think we're thinking in the right direction, but I'm not an expert on this to add any more.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe I can add something to help here. So typically, whenever you work on any AI and ML project, you should first look for research papers. There might be some solutions to, classify different voices. Some people might have already published some work on GitHub. So there's this website called Papers with Code. You will get the published paper as well as their GitHub repository. So maybe you can look onto that website if something to help you with that already exists. And also, I remember there was one AI experiment on this website called with google.ai, AI experiment.withgoogle.com. There is one project, I think it was published in 2017. The project was for classifying different birds, different voices of different species of birds. So that might also help to give you a starting point.
Hey, but what's your name? And then if you kindly send the ID or whatever the link that you discuss in our chat, so I will be able to get it.
Sure, I'll post the links on chat.
Okay, so we have one more question. Ola or Uber, do they provide current surge and info? So last I checked when I was working on that project, Ola and Uber, both of them had APIs. So if you just want to get prices of Uber in real time, maybe they still have those APIs available. They may or may not have the surcharge information added to it. Frankly speaking, I haven't looked into those for quite some time, but I think they might have those APIs available. Only thing is their terms and condition says that you cannot build a comparison service. So if you are using their APIs, make sure you are not building a comparison service, but look at it, maybe they have those APIs available. Another question, when starting a project involving new concepts, do you prefer learning those concepts by reading on them yourself or following some course? So I would say this depends on person to person. Everyone has a different approach, a different way of how they approach a problem. Uh, for me, I would say I'm not a very good student. I don't like following courses. So for me, if I'm let's say if I want to learn a new language, I would see, okay, this Think Calendar project, I knew little bit of Python, but I have never really used Python in a full full stack web app. So the way I work on it, if I want to learn a new tool, I will say, okay, I want to solve this problem. Now, how can I solve it? It might be if I want to create a web app, okay, how to create a web app in Python? What all web frameworks are there? Then if I want to do a background job processing, what all tools are there? And I will only look at solving my problem via that tool instead of going through the entire course of what all that tool can do. And that way, I think for me, that is how I learn about anything. Okay, tell me how I can solve this problem. And then I keep on expanding on it. Okay, what are alternatives to it? What is the best way of doing it? And that is how I learn. I don't follow a course. What games do you play in most of your free time? These days, I'm playing Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I'm also playing Horizon Zero Dawn, Project Zero Dawn. Yugant Bansal has questioned my when I think of contributing in open source. Let's say I want to contribute to Docker GitHub repository, but I see there are thousands of commits already present. How to start contributing in these huge repositories? So I think that's a very good question. Many people have this problem where they want to contribute, but they don't know where to start. And so many of these projects have a label called as good for first commit or good for first contributor, something like that. And there is even a website where which has a good list of all the projects which are there, and then they list out all the projects which have these issues created with that label of good for someone starting up new in that project. If you can send me an email, I can find that website and share it with you. later.
Yeah, sure, Neeraj. Thanks.
Umesh is asking, I've been working on a side project like you and I am kind of being burned out. So what do you do to recover faster than from this fatigue of not working anymore? I would say I just don't work on it. So I remember a few weeks ago, I didn't wanted to work on that on sync calendars project. So I stopped working on it. And the best way is let your body and your mind knows when it's ready. So don't force it. Let it be. You can do other things. You can spend time with your family, with your friends. You can play games if you want. And when you are ready, you will automatically start thinking about, okay, I want to solve that problem. I was stuck 3 weeks ago. Let me start solving it again. Or you might start remembering, okay, where did I left it? Let me continue it. So your body and mind will let you know, and don't force it, is what I will suggest. What kind of games help us to know more about AI? I don't know. I haven't seen any such games, but maybe if you Google, you might find some games. Is there a forum or something you go to for getting new project ideas? Uh, the answer to that is no. All of these ideas come to me. And you can say that I've spent so much time solving problems in my work life that I start seeing problems in my personal life as well. And for example, this calendar sync problem, someone suggested that I can uh, set up a forwarding rule where if I get a calendar invite on my National Pen email, I can forward it to Simpress email or vice versa. I did not even think of it. I directly started, okay, I have this problem, I want to solve it. Let's start coding. So maybe I've spent so much time coding that every problem seems like it can be solved with code. And I think so. This codec event, it's an open forum, and I think we can definitely create a group in this forum where we can start discussing these ideas. And yeah, I think that should be a good way for us forward. When starting to work on a project which does not have constraints of serving traffic, do you prefer choosing a language of your interest or decide the tech stack based on the problem? So I would say it's a mix of both. Sometimes I want to learn a new tool, or I want to work on a certain language. You use a certain language, so I use that. And if that tool is not going to solve the main problem, then obviously it's not a good choice. So I guess a good answer would be, so what constraints help you decide the tech stack? I would say most of the time it's what I want to do today. Sometimes I just Google what best language in 2020, popular languages in 2019, and that is how I decide the tech stack. Or sometimes if I don't want to learn a new language or learn a new tech stack, I'll just continue using whatever I was using earlier. So that's the only consideration, if I want to learn something new or I just want to use what I already know. Other than that, and in some cases, you definitely need to choose the tech stack which will solve that problem. So there's one project which I want to work on. I think that's a good problem for a graph database, and I have not worked on a graph database before. So I think it's a good match of that problem can be solved using graph database as well as I want to learn graph database. So in some cases, the tech stack you should use depending on the problem that you want to solve. But most of the time, if you want to learn something new or you just want to solve the problem, that is how you decide. Any other questions? I think in case you want to connect with me later, you can send out an email, or I'm sure we are going to create an open forum for Codec, and maybe we can connect there as well. Thank you, everyone. Ravi.
Thanks, Neeraj.
Neeraj.
Thanks.
Thank you, Neeraj, for the good presentation, and thanks everyone for asking question. Moving ahead, we have a list of events in the future as well. This is not the end of this session. So we have two things. One on the 14th Jan, cloud computing programming the, paradigms for scalable and robust solution by Vikas Garg. And then we have on the 28th Jan, cloud development and architecture by Pranay Joshi. As Neeraj mentioned, Kodak is going to create an open developer forum where you guys can join. We'll be posting announcement, upcoming events, etc. If you want to know about all these things, you'll have to register for it. This is the team for the Kodak. These are the core team members. If you want to collaborate with Kodak, you can reach out to any of the team member, and we can schedule an event or etc. for you. If you want to join us, you'll have to fill up the form. I'll post the link for the form in the chat box. It's not like a mailing list. It's like a mailing list where we can send you an invite or etc. for this. We'll not be spamming you guys.